So in the previous class, we have talked about 1853 Act. In the previous class, we have discussed the constitutional developments from 1773 to 1853. Right? So in today's class, let us go ahead and discuss some more topics. But before going to the class, before starting the actual polity class, so most of the people are asking about the schedule of the entire syllabus. All right. So syllabus and schedule. All right. The total schedule for completing the entire syllabus. So let me first talk about this syllabus first, then I'll go to the regular class. All right. So we have committed to complete the syllabus within 6 to 8 months. It is within 6 to 8 months. All right. So our target is to complete the syllabus within 6 months, but still, all right, we are using another 2 more months. All right. The first topic that will be discussed is polity. To complete polity, it will take 90 hours, not more than 90 hours. So providedly, it will be done within 30 days. For polity, it will be 30 days. After polity, it will be economy. All right. To complete entire economy, it will take 100 to 120 hours. That means it will take 35 to 40 days. So after economy, it will be history part. All right. To complete entire history, that is to take ancient, medieval and the modern part. All right. So to complete all this, it will take 60 days. All right. To complete geography, so after history it will be geography. To complete geography, it will take 100 to 120 hours. All right. That means again it will be 35 to 40 days. All right. That means to complete core part of, and even we have environment and ecology. So to complete this environment ecology, it will take 60 to 75 hours. All right. So normally it is again within 30 days. Within 30 days. All right. So this is the core part of our syllabus. All right. So now here we have 30, 40, 60 days, 40 days, 30 days. Right. 70 plus 60, 130 plus 40. It is 130 plus 40, 170, 210. So to complete the entire core part of UPS, this is topics which are common to both prelims as well as mains. All right. To complete entire syllabus, that is a common part of prelims and mains, it will take, right, not more than 210 hours. Remember, I have used the upper limit, that is, all right, to complete this it will take 180 to 210 days. That means at a maximum of 6 to 7 months. All right, and we have ethics part. So to complete ethics it will take another what you call 30 days. All right, so this is what about the entire schedule. So these are the sequence, all right, and we ensure that the syllabus is completed within 6 to 8 months. All right, at maximum it will take 8 months of time. All right, and not more than 8 months. That means we are in the month of May. All right, so it is 5 plus 6, that is by November to January the entire syllabus will be completed. All right, and along with this, so here we are going to cover the entire GS part, both for prelims as well as for mains. All right, so one request from my side is, all right, so along with this GS parallelly also do start preparing for optional subjects. All right, so do prepare well for optional. So because even optional will take around 3 to 6 months depending upon the optional. All right, it will take 3 to 6 months depending upon the optional, right? So that means ensure that along with GS by November you complete your optional. It is only then there is every chance of clearing the exam in 2025. All right, so if you want to clear exam in 2025, so you should do all these things. So this should be your what you call our schedule. All right, so along with this, so coming to GS part, I'll help you, right, in answering both mains questions as well as prelims, because anyhow we will be having the prelims practice test. All right, all right, and along with prelims practice test, all right, all right, we will be having prelims, right, as well as mains. All right, so you are made. So it is polity class now, right? I will take polity class. Okay. All right, so along with this what you call GS part, do start what you call writing answers in optional. Right, so I will take a separate session on optional. All right, that is how to choose an optional, because right, you should not get carried away by the mass. All right, because ultimately we want marks. We are here to score marks, and we should take such a subject which secures a very good marks in optional, right? Because you should go with the trends of UPSC, right? Every candidate who is preparing for civil services, they should go by the trends of UPSC. So choose such an optional, all right, where comfortably you can score around 260 to 280 marks, right? Because you cannot take, or you should not take too much of what you call pain. All right, so choose such a subject where you can cover both GS as well as optional subject. All right, so this is the what you call a schedule. All right, so that means our syllabus will be completed within 240 days. I am challenging and I am ensuring. Alright, the reason for this challenge is 70% of the subject will be taught by me. So I don't depend on anyone. Alright, so I'll be here, I'll be taking the class, and whenever required, I may go, that is, I'll take class for 3 to 4 hours. So it is not what you call, not difficult for me to complete. Alright, so my intention is to make you get ready for exam by December. Alright, so in coming to optionals, alright, how to write answers, so I'll take a separate session. Alright, but as most of the people are asking about the schedule, right, the timetable that they want, alright, this is, so already the one who are taking mentorship with me, they are given monthly schedules, micro and detailed schedules are given to them, right. So it is a separate what you call a course within our academy, right. So for them monthly schedules are given, but this is the plan of action for for this batch. Alright, so I hope you have understood. So coming to the polity class, coming to our polity class. So previously we have seen constitutional developments from 1773 to 1853. 1773 to 1853. Alright, so in today's class, we will go ahead, we will try to understand the constitutional developments from 1858 to 1947, right. So let us try to understand the constitutional developments, right. Let us try to understand constitutional developments from 1858 to 1947, right. So if you take this 1858, alright, so after 1853 I'll just give because when we are reading, or when we want to understand the constitutional developments, we should also know the contemporary, events, because it is these contemporary events that has an impact. These contemporary events have an impact on the constitutional development. Alright. So in fact, if you ask me, this constitutional development in India is all influenced by the contemporary events, that is the historical events. Right, it is a response. So constitutional development is constitutional development of a nation. Constitutional development of a nation is an impact of, it is an impact or it is an influence of, contemporary historical events. It is an influence of contemporary historical events. Contemporary historical events, right. So this is how we can say, and you can expect these kind of questions. Alright, so let you take down this as a question. Constitutional development of a nation. So take down this question. Constitutional development of a nation is an impact of contemporary historical events. It is an impact of contemporary historical events. Justify this statement by taking Indian Constitution as an example. Justify this statement by taking Indian Constitution as an example. Alright. So use Indian Constitution. You justify this statement by using Indian Constitution as an example. Right. So this is a kind of questions. Right. If you can answer this question, right, anyone, right, who can satisfy this question, I am challenging, they'll get rank. Definitely they'll get rank. Right. So that is the reason why we should also focus. We should also focus on the contemporary historical events. All right. So, all right, in 1857, we have seen, right, we have witnessed one of the important event in the history of India, all right, which has changed the entire course, of Indian history. That is, it has a major influence. This event, the event of 1857, it has a major influence. It has a major influence on. It has a major influence on what you call the entire course of Indian history. Right? That is the event of 1857 revolt, which is popularly called as the Sipahi Mutiny. It is popularly called as Sipahi Mutiny. All right, or revolt of 1857. All right, this is very important for UPSC exam. All right, so the things which I am stressing in the class, do focus on it. All right, do focus on it. All right, so you should know all the reasons. You should know all the reasons for this revolt. That is, reasons are factors behind the revolt. Second one, all right, the personalities involved. The personalities involved in the revolt. The center of revolt, or the places, the center of revolt, or the places connected with the revolt. All right. So reasons, personalities, what you call, and the influence, the impact. All right, influence of this revolt. All right, if you take this 1857 revolt, this 1857 revolt has much influence because it has become inspiration. 1857 revolt has become inspiration for India's future freedom struggle. Inspiration for, right, India's future freedom struggle. All right, and that is the reason why it is also called as this 1857 revolt. It is also called as the first war of independence. V.D. Savarkar has called this 1857 revolt as first war of independence. And earlier this question was asked in UPSC. All right, this question came in UPSC. Particularly it was asked in both GS paper as well as in history optional paper. All right, it was asked in both GS as well as history optional paper. That is why 1857 revolt is regarded as what you call why it is regarded as a first war of independence. So is there any meaning? Is there any justification in calling this 1857 revolt as a first war of independence? Does it has any kind of justification? All right. So this is what the event. So the outcome of this 1857 revolt. So here every candidate who is preparing for UPSC, do focus on these areas. It is very important. Once again I am repeating, they are highly important for exam. All right. So, and in our institution, I'll make you to write each and every answer on this. So whenever the topic comes on 1857, if it is mains, you will be asked questions on these areas, and even in prelims you will be asked on the questions. All right. So I am giving all the hints. All right. So let me give a brief description. Let me discuss this revolt briefly, because as it is a polity class, I will not go into all the details of this 1857 revolt. I'll just give the what you call brief idea or a brief picture of revolt. So this revolt got started. This 1857 revolt got started because of killing of, not death, it is killing of Mangal Pandey. Because of killing of Mangal Pandey, right? So it is because of what you call killing of Mangal Pandey, which has led to the revolt, right? So Mangal Pandey is regarded as hero of 1857, right? So he is regarded as the revolt of 1857. But it is not just the killing of Mangal Pandey, right? The Indian Sipahis in East India Company army, they revolted against their master, right? The reason for the revolt, right? The reason for the revolt, right? It is obviously the death of Mangal Pandey, and there is a theory of what we call greased cartridges. There is a theory of greased cartridges. All right. So what do you mean by cartridge? It is bullets used in the rifles. All right. So the Indian Sipahis who are working in East India Company, they were forced to use these greased cartridges. They were forced to use these greased bullets. That is, they are greased with pig fats and cow fat, right? So let me explain this point very clearly. So I'm not that good in what you call all right. So if you take this as a cartridge, all right. So this is the cap of the cartridge. So without removing this cap, all right, the bullet cannot be fired, all right. And here this cap is attached to the bullet, right, by using fat, a fat made up of cow and pig, all right. So if you take Indian society, all right, using this fat, using pig fat or cow fat, or touching this pig fat or cow fat, it is seen as a sin. It is seen as a sin in Indian society. That is the reason why most of the Sipahis have refused. The Indian Sipahis working in East India Company, they have refused to use this greased cartridges, but they were forced. They were forced by their English masters. Alright, they were forced by masters to use this cartridges. So because of this, the Sipahis in East India Company, they have revolted. The reason for revolt by the Indian Sipahi, it is because of this issue. Right? It is the issue of using of greased cartridges. Right? But so this is seen as immediate. This is seen as the immediate or the immediate cause of revolt. But remember, right, this greased cartridges is not the actual reason. Though it is immediate cause or immediate reason, but it is not the actual reason. The actual factors behind this revolt is exploitation of Indians. Exploitation of Indians by East India Company. Alright. So East India Company has acquired Indian territories forcefully. The local rulers, which we call them as native rulers. The local rulers are the native rulers. They have lost their territories. They have lost their territories. Right? The local rulers are the native rulers. They have lost their territories. Say for example, the very well-known figure is the very well-known ruler, well-known native ruler or the local ruler who lost territory to East India Company was Jhansi Lakshmi Bai. So most of us know about Jhansi Rani. Right? So that is Rani of Jhansi. So Jhansi is a place, it is a territory. Right? Lakshmi Bai. Alright. So the territory of this Lakshmi Bai was taken forcefully by East India Company. So there are many such territories. So by using a policy called as doctrine of lapse, it is by using the policy of doctrine of lapse. So doctrine of lapse, right, which was implemented by Dalhousie. It was implemented by Dalhousie, right? So it is these political factors. If you ask me, it is the political factors, all right, economic factors, right, the social factors, all right, the religious factors, then comes the issue of greased cartridges. Then comes the issue of greased cartridges. So primarily these are the factors. So this is what the reasons behind, all right, 1857 revolt, all right. So political factors, it is about loss of territories by what you call Indian rulers, loss of pensions. Even East India Company stopped pensions, all right, to the local rulers, all right. So people like Nana Sahib, Tantya Tope, right, Bahadur Shah, they have lost their pensions, all right. Jhansi Rani, Begum Hazrat Mahal, they have lost their territories, all right. So because of these companies, because of the East India companies, the native Indians, the what you call, the native Indians have lost their livelihood, all right. So the artisan class, they have lost their livelihoods, all right. So we see total domination, of what you call East India Company. So there is an economic exploitation, social factors. East India Company in the name of reforms, it started interfering with the Indian social customs, all right. We see involvement or interference in the Indian social customs. Indian social customs, all right. Say for example, all right, we all know about what you call, if you take Indian society is basically a conservative society, right. Indian society is basically a conservative society. Say for example, we have what you call child marriages, which is accepted in India, all right. Even, right, child marriages, all right. Then we had the system, of course, which cannot be justified, all right. Child marriages, sati, right. We have the system of sati, all right. We had the system of sati. Then we had what you call widows. There were what you call restrictions imposed on widows, all right. So no intercaste marriages, all right. So we had these kind of what you call norms in Indian society. These are basically the customs, or you take the norms of Indian society. They are the norms of Indian society. All right. So what happened is, all right, the East India Company, it started bringing changes. All right, it started bringing changes in these social norms. We call them as reforms. All right, the Indian society, that is, right, reforms were initiated. Say for example, abolition of child labor, abolition of sati, all right, widow remarriages. So that means almost all in the early 19th century. In the early 19th century, we see changes in early 19th century, we see changes in what you call the social norms of the society. You see changes in social norms of society. All right, because of this. So now when there is a change is brought, then will Indians accept these kind of changes? Do you think that Indians will accept these kind of changes? Particularly the conservative society. Right? If you take Indian society, we always had a Varna system. We always had a Varna system. So Indian society is characterized by this Varna system. It is, we have a caste system. Now, can we expect the ruling class, the upper class or the upper echelons of society, will they accept these kind of changes? Right? So definitely we can say that the upper class will not accept. Right? So we have the conservatives, all right, who will not accept these kind of changes. That is the reason why they were against to this all reforms. All right. So the upper caste people or the upper caste societies in India, they were not much interested. Or they were against to the reforms that were brought by East India Company. All right. So that means what? So the people of India are against the political policies of the East India Company. They were against the economic exploitation. They were against the social changes brought. And coming to what you call religious factors, I was talking about the religious factors. Right? We see increased influence of Christian missionaries, particularly in the tribal areas. Forceful conversions by this East India Company. So along with them, that is when East India Company came to India, along with them they also brought these missionaries into India. And these missionaries, they started interfering with the local religious practices. That is the reason why even before the rulers revolting, it is the tribal leaders, it is the tribal people, it is the tribals of India who have fought against East India Company. We have seen Coal rebellion, Santanal rebellion, Munda rebellions. In Andhra Pradesh, we have seen Rampa rebellion. Alright? So that means, alright, even before this 1857 revolt, we had tribal revolts in India. We had tribal revolts in India. Alright? The reason for tribal revolts is because of this factor. Alright? So unnecessary influence, unnecessary interference by, alright, Christian missionaries with the local tribal customs. Alright? So this is the reason, this is the factors. Alright? Alright? So briefly, alright, these are the factors behind what we call 1857 revolt. Alright? So remember, we started a discussion, right, on the reasons of 1857 revolt. Alright? So I am just trying to explain, right, what had happened in 1857, because you should know, every aspirant should know what had happened in 1857. So why this revolt took place, right? So just now we have discussed about the factors, that is political factors, economic factors, social factors, right, religious factors, and even we have discussed about the greased cartridges incident. Alright, we have talked about the issue of greased cartridges. Alright, so these are the factors. So let me explain about alright, the centers of this revolt. That is, if you take this 1857 revolt, right, it was mainly organized in Delhi. In Delhi, it was organized by Bakht Khan. It was organized by Bakht Khan, alright. Ahmadullah. Jhansi, it is Rani Lakshmi Bai. Alright, Kanpur, it was Nana Sahib. Awadh, it was Begum Hazrat Mahal. Ara, it is Kunwar Singh. So, Nana Sahib and Tantia Tope. Right? So, it was Delhi, Lucknow, Jhansi, Kanpur, Awadh, right? Bihar, Ara. So, these were the major centers. These were the major centers of 1857 revolt, and these are the personalities who are involved in 1857 revolt. So, almost all of them, either they have died in fighting against East India Company, or you take Nana Sahib and Tantia Tope, they have fled to Iran, including Kunwar Singh, right? So, they have fled to Iran, right? So, these are the major centers. So, when you are reading this 1857 revolt, you should focus on the factors, you should focus on the personalities, you should focus on personalities, you should focus on the centers of revolt. These are very important for prelims exam. Coming to prelims, it is important for prelims. And for mains, the analytical part of 1857 revolt, the causing factors, the impact, alright. So, this is about 1857, and if you take the impact of 1857 revolt, right? So, it led to abolition of East India Company. That is, after this 1857 revolt, right, major changes were brought in India. Right, after this revolt, right. So, ultimately the impact was on, right, abolishing East India Company from India, right. So, ultimately this East India Company was abolished in 1872, right. So, exactly it was in 1872 where the East India Company was abolished, right. Alright. So, let us talk about these changes. This is very important for exam. Alright. So, during this what you call 1857 revolt, it was Lord Canning. It was Lord Canning who was the Governor General of India. It was Lord Canning who was the Governor General of India. Alright. And it was during his time, it was during his period, right, this 1857 revolt took place, right. Next, coming to the changes, alright. So, after this 1857 revolt, that is, by seeing this 1857 revolt, the entire British government got shocked. The Queen, the British government, they got shocked after seeing this war, because it is one of the what you call a violent revolt. 1857 revolt is regarded as one of the violent revolt, right? And it is in this revolt we see, right, larger participation of people, right? We see mass participation. We see mass participation or larger participation of people. Almost all, every section of Indian society, they were involved Every section of Indian society got involved in this revolt. So by seeing this participation, by seeing the kind, what you call the nature of violence, after seeing this nature of violence, British government got shocked. British government got shocked after this revolt. All right. British government got shocked after this revolt. So British government felt that East India Company is no longer fit to stay in India. Alright. So changes were brought in 1858. Alright. So immediately after this war, after this revolt, right, there was a proclamation made by British Queen. There was a proclamation made by British Queen. Alright. So if we take this British proclamation, if we take this proclamation, right. So British Queen has assumed suzerainty over India. Alright. She has assumed supremacy over India. So all those activities, all those functions which were earlier performed by the East India Company, now they are directly taken by British government and British Queen. Right. So all the functions and all the activities of East India Company, all the functions and all the activities of the company, now they are directly taken. Now they are directly controlled by British government. That is, right, this 1857 revolt led to direct control by British government in India. Alright. So that is what the major change. So supremacy of Queen, that is, Queen is regarded as the supreme authority. Queen is regarded as supreme authority of all the territories which were under the control of East India Company. That is, all those territories which were under the control of East India Company, now they are directly administered by British government. Now they are directly administered by British government, and on these territories, it is Queen who has supreme authority. That means if you take India, in India we have two types of territories. So what are these two types of territories? Those territories which are under the direct control of Queen, and those territories which are under the control of local rulers or native princes. Right? So we have two types of territories. One is territories under the control of Queen. Second one is territories under the control of native rulers. We call them as local princes. So these are called as princely states. So they are called as princely states. And those territories which are under the direct control of Queen, they are called as British India provinces. They are called as British India provinces. That means what? We have one is provinces and the other one is princely states. One is provinces, other one is princely states. So provinces are under Queen and British government. Princely states, they are under the native rulers. Alright. So this is what about two types of territories. So this is one thing. Second one is all the existing institutions, they were abolished. All the existing institutions were abolished by, alright, all the existing institutions, they are abolished by this 1858, that is in 1858. So, according to this 1858 Act, alright, so according to 1858 Act, all the existing institutions were abolished. So, what were the existing institutions? What were the existing institutions that we had? If we take existing institutions, East India Company, the Governor General, the Court of Directors, the Board of Control. So, all they are existing institutions in India. So, by 1858 Act, all these institutions, they are abolished. All these institutions, they are abolished by 1858 Act, and in place of them, new institutions were created, and in place of them, new institutions were created. Alright, so we see, alright, new institutions coming up. So what are these new institutions? One is Viceroy. Second one is Secretary of State. Right? So one is Viceroy and the other one is Secretary of State. Right? So these are the new institutions. These are the new institutions that have come up. Alright? These are the new institutions that have come up. Alright? So if you take this Viceroy, alright, Viceroy is a person, alright, who is appointed by British Queen. Alright? He is a person who is appointed by Queen, alright, who stays in India. That is, he operates from India. That means it is this Viceroy who is the head of the entire British India government in India. Right? So, Viceroy is head of British India government. He is head of British India government in India. Alright? And this Viceroy is supported by Executive Council. This Viceroy is supported by Executive Council and Legislative Council. Right? He is supported by Executive Council and Legislative Council. Right? So Viceroy is the head of the British India government in India. He has his own Executive Council as well as Legislative Council. Alright, so these are the setup that were introduced. This is the setup that is introduced, alright, by 1858 Act. Alright, this is a setup that is introduced by 1858 Act. Alright, so Viceroy, he is appointed by Queen, so he is answerable and accountable to Queen. Right, he is assisted by Executive Council and Legislative Council. Alright, so and coming to Secretary of State, alright, he is a member of British government. He works from London. His office is in London. Simply, right, I can say one point. He is just like a minister who is in charge of Indian affairs. Alright, he is just like a minister. He is just like a minister who is what do you call? He is just like a minister who is in charge of Indian affairs. Alright, I'll ask one question. Can I ask, in which year for the first time a Supreme Court was created in India? In which year for the first time a Supreme Court was created? When for the first time Supreme Court has come in India? In the previous class we have discussed it. It is 1770, according to 1773 Act. We have seen this. But the question was, for the first time when Supreme Court was established in India. I am not asking about Supreme Court of India. There is much difference between Supreme Court of India and Supreme Court in India. So again, remember, I want to stress on one point. Whenever you are seeing a question, do focus on each and every word in the question, because each and every word in the question has a meaning, right? So, alright, and for the first time, alright, we have seen Governor General of Bengal, alright, and we have seen Executive Council to assist Governor General of Bengal. So when this Executive Council was created, again in 1773, it is again in 1773, alright. So who was the chairperson of first law commission? It was Macaulay. It was Lord Macaulay, alright. So always try to revise on a day-to-day basis, because normally I have the habit of asking questions, because I want everyone to be serious to the exam, right? Alright. So Viceroy was assisted by Executive Council and Legislative Council, because already we have seen this setup. Already we have seen Executive Council and Legislative Council previously. So they were created for the first time. Legislative Council came to existence in 1853. If you recollect the previous class, it was in 1853 for the first time a Legislative Council was created. Alright. So this is about the point is, alright. And the Secretary of State, he, alright, just I was saying that, right, if you are confused about the Secretary of State, just imagine that he is a minister in charge of Indian affairs. He is a minister in charge of Indian affairs within British government. Alright. So this Secretary of State is answerable to whom? He is answerable to British Parliament. Right. So Secretary of State is accountable and answerable. Right. He is accountable and answerable to British Parliament. Viceroy for Queen. He is for British Parliament. Alright. So this is what about the changes brought by 1858. And remember, when Queen has proclaimed, alright, when Queen has made her proclamation, she has promised to provide good government. She has promised to provide good governance to India. So that is the reason why 1858 Act. That is the reason why 1858 Act is also called as Act of Good Governance. It is also called as Act of Good Governance. Act of Good Government. It is called as Act of Good Government. Alright. So these are the things that you should know, alright, about 1858 Act. Alright. So now moving on to the most important, that is 1861 Act, the Indian Councils Act of 1861. Very, very important, because it is important because every provision of 1861 Act Indian Councils Act of 1861, every provision of 1861 Act, it has an impact on present day constitution. That is, every provision had an impact on present day constitution. So I'll discuss this point. That is, I will simultaneously discuss the provisions of 1861 as well as its presence in present day constitution. So in what way or how it is present in present day constitution. Alright. So it is this act which has increased the strength of legislative council at both central level as well as at provincial level. That is the strength of Viceroy's legislative council. The strength of Viceroy's legislative council as well as provincial legislative council. Provincial legislative council, it was increased. So there was an increase. The number of members in these councils got increased. Alright, okay. Alright, the number of Indians in the Viceroy's legislative council was made as 4. Alright, so 4 members were added to Viceroy's legislative council. 4 members were added to Viceroy's legislative council. Alright, so this is another point. Alright, what? So 4 members were added to 4 Indians. 4 Indians were added to 4 members. Here it is 4 Indians were added to the Viceroy's legislative council. Fourth one. All right. It is this act which has restored the legislative powers of Bombay and Madras. All right. So it is this act which has restored. It is this act which has restored the legislative powers. Right? Just a moment. And electrician. Right? So it is this act which has restored the legislative powers of Bombay and Madras. So restoration of legislative powers of Bombay and Madras. All right. So this was done. So we are talking about restoration of legislative powers of Bombay and Madras. In which year Bombay and Madras lost their legislative powers? Alright, in which year Bombay and Madras lost their legislative powers? Alright, in which year Bombay and Madras have lost their powers? Not in 1773. It was in 1833. It was in 1833. Alright, it was in 1833 where Bombay and Madras have lost their legislative powers. Bombay and Madras have lost their legislative powers. Right? So, and these lost powers, now they are being restored. The powers which were lost in 1833, they were restored in 1861. Alright, that means, alright, Bombay and Madras, alright, Bombay and Madras have regained their legislative powers. Alright, so this is about 1861. That is one of the important things. So we have seen 1773 Act. Initiating the process of centralization. And 1833 brought a climax to centralization. 1833 brought a climax. It has brought a climax to centralization. Alright. So, but what happened in 1861 is totally different. In 1833, the powers were taken, the Governor General was strengthened, but now what happened? We see restoration. So, can we call this 1861 Act as an act of what we call decentralization? If we call 1833 Act as an act of centralization, then 1861 Act is an act of decentralization. Alright? So, it is an act of decentralization. So, 1861 Act can be regarded as act of decentralization. Alright? So, this is one thing. Next, 1861 Act has provided, alright, statutory recognition. It has provided statutory recognition. Statutory recognition to portfolio system. It has provided statutory recognition to portfolio system. Alright. So, remember, if you take this portfolio system, so this system was actually introduced in 1859 by Lord Canning. Alright. The portfolio system was actually introduced by Lord Canning in 1859. Alright. But there was no statutory recognition. Alright. So, you should know the meaning of statutory recognition. So, let us just try to understand the meaning of statutory recognition. So, what do you mean by statutory recognition? So, first of all, you should know the meaning of statute. You should know the meaning of statute. Statute means law of legislature. It is law of legislature. Statute means it is law of legislature. So, any law that is made by legislature, any law that is made by parliament, it is called as statute. It is called as statute. Alright? It is called as statutes. So, never get confused by seeing the word statutes. So, statute or law, both are same. Right? Both the words of statute and law are same. Right? Sometimes we also see the word called as statutory bodies. Right? We also see the word of statutory bodies. Statutory bodies or statutory institutions. So, these are the common words that we see in newspapers or in our polity. That means those institutions, those bodies which are created by a law of parliament. Those institutions which are created by a law of parliament. Right? So, they are called as statutory bodies. The best example is National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, Central Vigilance Commission, SEBI. All these are statutory bodies. Right? So, statute means what? It is law of legislature. Right? So, here though the portfolio system was introduced in 1859, it was it was not recognized officially. It was not recognized lawfully. So, now it was by 1861 Act. It was by 1861 Act we see a statutory recognition being given. Right? That is a legal recognition. A legal recognition being given to the portfolio system. Right? So, now I think you are clear about the meaning of statutory recognition. Now, what is portfolio system? What do you mean by portfolios? Portfolio. Right? So, portfolios is nothing but dividing the work and assigning the work among the members of government. Simply, it is the work of government being divided. It is not only divided, but it is also assigned. It is given. It is given to the members of government. right? Division of work of government and assigning the work of government, right? Now, when I use the word government, who are the members of government? Who are the members of government? What they are called? It is portfolio, means it is dividing the work of government and assigning the work of government among the members of government. So, who are members of government? What they are called as? Ministers, right? It is nothing but assigning the work among the ministers, right? That is what called as portfolio system. So, portfolio system means it is assigning the work among the members of government, right? Assigning the work among members of government. That is what, nothing but ministries, right? Right, that is what, nothing but ministries. Right, am I clear? Right. Now, so this actual system of what you call a portfolio system, this actual system of portfolio or assigning the work among the ministries, it got started from 1859. It was officially recognized in 1861. Now today, do we have this system? Today we have this system of portfolio. Yes. Article 75 of the Constitution. Remember, it is Article 75 of the Constitution which deals with appointment and removal of ministers, Council of Ministers. Not only appointment and removal of ministers, but the same article, the same article 75 also deals with assigning of ministries, assigning of work among the ministries. Alright. So, this portfolio system today we have in Article 75. It is in Article 75. So, Article 75 is very important. Alright. Because Article 75 is the cornerstone of parliamentary system of government. Remember, the importance of Article 75 lies in that it is this Article 75 which has an element, which has a principle called as principle of collective responsibility. Very important. It is this Article 75 which has the principle of collective responsibility. The principle of collective responsibility. And remember, this principle of collective responsibility is regarded as cornerstone of parliamentary system of government. So, we have parliamentary system of government, right? So, in this parliamentary system of government, it is this collective responsibility, which is cornerstone, bedrock principle, right? So, we have this article, we have this portfolio system, alright. Now, coming to another element, 1861 Act has empowered, 1861 Act has empowered, alright, the Viceroy to make budget. Article 70, alright, it has empowered the Viceroy. Remember, when we talk about 1861 Act mainly has empowered Viceroy. So, it is this Act which has given all the powers to Viceroy, right? So, it has empowered the Viceroy to make budget. The concept of budget in India, today we all talk about budget. Today we all see about budget in the news, right? So, this concept of budget, it was introduced in 1861. It was introduced in 1861. Alright. So, what do you mean by budget? What do you mean by budget? No idea. Just a guess. It is about allocation of resources, financial resources. Definitely good. It is very good, right? So it is about allocation of your available financial resources. So here Viceroy is empowered to make budget. So that means what? Viceroy and his ministers. Right? There is an executive council. Alright, there is an executive council. It is the members of executive council. So there is a person who is responsible for financial affairs. Alright. So every member of what we call executive council, they are given responsibilities. The person who is responsible for financial affairs, alright, it is that person under Viceroy will make the budget. Alright, I'll explain this. Alright. So budget is all about allotting. Budget is all about allocation of financial resources. Allocation of financial resources. Alright, among different activities. Alright, so we can also call it as a financial plan of the government. We can also call it as a financial plan of the government. Budget is also a financial plan of the government. So where to spend, how to use money, alright, that is what budget. So it is for the first time, Viceroy was given this power. For the first time, Viceroy was given this power to make budget, a common budget for center as well as provinces, right? So today if you take present day system, we have what we call center having their own budgets and every state having their own budgets. But in 1861, when this budget was introduced in India, it was a common budget. It was a single budget, right? And that budget which is prepared by Viceroy, alright? So it is budget. And if you take present day system, alright? So even in the present day constitution we have this budget, alright? So article, but though we have budget, but we don't see the word budget in the constitution. The word budget is not mentioned in the constitution, right? The word budget is not mentioned. The word budget is not mentioned in constitution. It is called as annual financial statement. In our constitution, this budget is called as annual financial statement. It is annual financial statement, right? That is the technical name or technical word that we see in constitution, which is mentioned in article 112. Alright, so every article that I am writing on the board, you need to remember for your entire lifetime. It is article 112. It is article 112 that deals with the budget. So it is called as annual financial statement. Alright, so this is one element. This is one thing. Alright, so the system that was introduced in 1861, even today we have the same kind of system. Alright, we have the same system. Alright, that is even today we have budget. Alright, so in the present day system, alright, who issues this budget? In present day system, who issues the budget? So it was Viceroy, right, before independence. Now it is President of India. It is the President of India who recommends. It is President of India. So without President recommendation, the budget cannot be introduced. Right? Without President recommendation, the budget cannot be introduced. Right? So introduction of budget requires President recommendation. Alright, this is the point that you should remember as of now. Alright, this is one thing. Second thing, alright, so Viceroy and the Viceroy was given the power to issue ordinance. Ordinance making power was given to Viceroy. Ordinance making power. So Viceroy can issue ordinance. Viceroy can issue ordinance, all right, at any point of time. Right. So here normally we have certain conditions for issuing the ordinance. Right. So ordinances are issued when the legislative council is not in session. All right. Right. Ordinances are issued when legislative councils are not in sessions. Alright. So this is the primary condition, and every ordinance that is issued by Viceroy has same power. It has same power and same effect. It has same power and same effect as that of law made by legislature. It has same power and same effect as that of law of legislature. Alright. So this is what ordinance means. Right. So ordinance is simply nothing but in a layman language, it is nothing but a law made by Viceroy. Or you can also imagine it as an order issued by Viceroy which has same power and same effect as that of law of legislature. So when legislative council is not in session, then in such condition, the Viceroy can issue the ordinance. Right. The same powers are given to President of India under present day constitution. Article 123 of the constitution. So remember, I am comparing the present constitution with the 1861 act. Right. I am comparing the present constitution with the 1861 act. Right. So article 123 of the constitution. It deals with ordinance making power of President of India. So not only President of India, but also it is Governor of the states, right? Even Governor of the states enjoy this ordinance making power. So Article 123 deals with President. It is President's ordinance making power, whereas Article 213 it deals with ordinance making power of Governor. Alright. So this is one power. This is one thing. Alright. So President has both President and Governor. They enjoy this power. So I'll do one thing. I'll take a break of 5 minutes. I'll have some water. Again I will start the class. Alright. Alright, okay. So we have seen what you call ordinary speaking power of viceroy. So this what you call act, this act even that is 1861 act has empowered the viceroy to nominate members to the legislative council. Right. So power was given to viceroy, that is viceroy enjoyed the power from 1861, or simply the 1861 act has empowered viceroy to nominate members to the legislative council. That means viceroy can also nominate members to the council. Right, there will be the representatives of viceroy in the legislative council. That means when in the entire lawmaking process, that is during lawmaking process, right, even the viceroy's views will also be upheld. They will be given by these members, right. So this is one power, and even today the same kind of powers are enjoyed by President of India. So according to our constitution, that is in our constitution, President of India was given the powers to nominate members both to Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So in case of Rajya Sabha, President can nominate 12 members where it is mandatory. So it is mandatory for the President of India, right? It is mandatory for President of India to nominate members to 12 members to Rajya Sabha from different walks of life. 12 eminent members, nominating 12 eminent members from different walks of life, right? So this is one thing. Second thing, all right, if required, President of India can also nominate 2 members from Anglo-Indian community to Lok Sabha. So he can nominate 2 members from Anglo-Indian community. He can nominate 2 members from Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha. Alright, but it is not compulsory here. Remember, it is an option. It is not mandatory. But coming to Rajya Sabha, it is mandatory. It is mandatory for president in Rajya Sabha, but not in Lok Sabha. Right? Am I clear? Right? This is one thing. Alright. So this is one power. Now, along with this, Viceroy was also given the veto powers. Right. So 1861 Act has empowered the Viceroy. 1861 Act has empowered the Viceroy to use his veto powers. To use veto powers. Alright. To use the veto powers. Alright. So, what do you mean by veto powers? What do you mean by veto? What do you understand by veto? Alright. Veto means simply it is the power to override. Veto is nothing but the power to override. So, they are overriding powers. They are power to override, or simply in a layman language it is power to reject. It is power to reject. That is, Viceroy was given the power to reject any decision taken either by Legislative Council or by the members of Executive. Right? He can reject the decisions of Legislature or Executive. Viceroy can reject the decisions of Legislature or Executive, right? So this is one power given. This is one power given by Viceroy, right? So 1861 Act has given this power to Viceroy. So Viceroy has the power to reject. He can reject the decisions of Legislature. That means he can reject a law made by Legislature. At the same time, he can reject what you call the decisions taken by members of Executive Council. Alright? Bhagya. కిందికి వెళ్ళి ఆ విజిల్ బంద్ చేయమని చెప్పు. Alright. So the Viceroy was given the power. Viceroy was given the power to reject what you call the decisions of executive members or the laws made by Legislature. The same thing was even given to President of India. So President under Article 111, President under Article 111 of the Constitution, alright, he enjoyed this veto making power. He enjoys veto power. Remember, under Article 111, President of India was given 3 types of vetoes, right? He was given 3 types of vetoes. One is suspensive veto, pocket veto and absolute veto powers. So these are 3 types of veto powers which are given under Article 111 to the President of India. Suspensive veto, pocket veto and absolute veto powers. Alright. Right, so this is normally what you call the veto power. So these are the powers, these are different powers given to Viceroy. So let me round up all the powers that were given to Viceroy under 1861 Act. Alright. It is known for portfolio system, budget making power, right? Then ordinance issuing power, power to nominate members, all right, power to veto the decisions taken by the what you call taken, all right. So these are different types, these are different powers which are given to viceroy, and all these powers are also present in present day constitution, right? So can we say that the origin of president of India, the origin of office of president, it is in 1861 act. So can we say that 1861 act has an influence on the office of president? All right, definitely. So take down a question on this point. Take down a question on this point. Take down a question. Explain the constitutional significance. Explain the constitutional significance of 1861 Act. Explain the constitutional significance of 1861 Act. Okay, done. So this is about 1861 Act. Next, moving on to next one, that is 1909 Act, Indian Councils Act of 1909 Act. All right, 1909 Act, which is also called as Morley-Minto Act. Morley-Minto Act. So Morley is Secretary of State, whereas Minto is Viceroy. So remember, these acts, these acts are also named after. They are also named after the Secretary of State. They are named after Secretary of State and Viceroy. Named after Secretary of State and Viceroy. Right? So it is also called as Morley-Minto Act. The significance of this act is, it is by this act for the first time separate electorate was introduced, also called as communal electorate. This act is known for separate electorate, is also called as communal electorate. All right, it is also called as communal electorate. All right. So Morley is regarded as father of separate electorate. Actually, it is Morley who is regarded as father of separate electorate or communal electorate. All right. So that means what? The concept of elections were introduced in India. Remember, the concept of elections in an indirect manner. The concept of elections in an indirect manner, it was actually introduced. It was actually introduced in 1892. It was actually introduced in 1892. Right? The concept of indirect elections came to existence. Right? It was introduced in 1892 and it was applied again in 1909 Act. It was applied again in 1909 Act. Okay. Alright. So where the members of the provincial legislative councils, they are elected indirectly. Alright. The members of provincial legislative council are elected indirectly. Members of the provincial legislative council, they are elected indirectly, right? So this is what the point is, right? Coming to other provisions of this act, so as usually the strength of both Viceroy's Legislative Council as well as Provincial Legislative Council, the strength of Viceroy's Legislative Council as well as the Provincial Legislative Council. The strength of both Viceroy's Legislative Council and Provincial Legislative Council was increased. That is the number of members. Right? They were increased. Right? So if you take this separate electorate, I'll give a meaning of this separate electorate, because these members are elected indirectly. But the point of the principle of election is what you call religion. Right? In Hindu dominant areas, only Hindus are given the voting rights and right to contest. Whereas in Muslim majority areas, it is only Muslims who are given this what you call right to contest as well as what you call vote in the elections. That means in Hindu areas, Muslims don't enjoy the right. In Muslim areas, Hindus won't enjoy the rights. So this separate electorate was given to caste Hindus and caste Muslims. That is, it is only given to Hindus and Muslims initially. So in 1909, this separate electorate was given to Hindus and Muslims. Hindus and Muslims. Am I clear? It was given to Hindus and Muslims. Right? So this is what about the point. Alright. Later on, this was extended. This separate electorate was extended to other religions. Say for example, Christians, Sikhs, and every section. So by 1935, every section got voting rights and right to contest the elections. Alright. So coming to the other provisions of this 1909 Act, right? It is this Act, right, for the first time has added an Indian into the Executive Council, right? For the first time an Indian was added. For the first time an Indian was added to the Viceroy's Executive Council. Viceroy's Executive Council. So it is Satyendra Prasad Sinha. It was Satyendra Prasad Sinha who was the first Indian to be appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council, and he was given, Satyendra Prasad Sinha was given what you call the law portfolio. He was given the law portfolio. SP Sinha was given the law portfolio. Alright. So this is what about the point is. So Viceroy's Executive, so first time an Indian was appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council, and the first person to be appointed to this council is Satyendra Prasad Sinha. It is Satyendra Prasad Sinha. Alright. So this is one thing. So it has increased deliberative functions of Legislative Council. That is, it has deliberative functions. That means the power to discuss, debate on the laws made by the Legislative Council. That means, so without discussion, without debate, there won't be, without voting, there won't be any law passed. This concept of debating and discussions, it got started from 1909 Act. So 1909 Act is known for, this deliberative and what you call, it is known for deliberative functions, which includes discussions and debates and voting, right? And here the highlight of this deliberative functions is the members were also given the power to discuss and debate on budget made by Viceroy. That means, so without a discussion, without a debate, right, no budget can be made, right? So budgets are made, budgets are passed only after debate and discussions, right? So even budget is subjected for debate and discussions, right? Budgets are subjected to debate and discussions, alright. So this is what deliberative functions are, alright. Even today we have the same kind of things. Today every law is passed in the parliament only after debate and voting, right? And in case, I'll ask one question, if budget is not passed, think that there was a debate on budget and the government failed to secure the majority on budget. Think that, imagine that the government has failed to pass the budget is not passed. Will it have any impact on the government? Remember, if budget is not passed, then it is a ground for introducing no confidence motion. Government will not come directly, will not fall directly, but it will be a ground for introducing no confidence motion. Not only budget, any important law, any important bill, a bill that government thinks it as prestigious, a bill that government thinks it as important, if it is not passed in the house, then it can be a ground. To introduce a no confidence motion. It can be a ground to introduce no confidence motion. That is, no confidence motions can be introduced. No confidence motions can be introduced in case, right, budgets are not passed or important bills are not passed. Right. So this concept of voting and everything, it got started from what you call 1909 Act. Right. So the concept of questionnaire, right, the concept of questionnaire, it was not there. It was not there in, but I am talking about the present system. Right. The concept of questionnaire came out. Right. Here there was no elected government in 1909. Right. So, right, if you take this government, we are talking about British India government. What actually British India government means? If you take British India government, so don't get confused. British India government means it is Viceroy and his Executive Council. Viceroy and Executive Council is government, and Viceroy and his Legislative Council is Parliament. Alright, I'll just give this if you right. The easy way to remember is, if you take President of India, President of India is a part of executive, this is a part of legislature, or that is Parliament. He is an integral part of executive, he is an integral part of Parliament. He is head of both executive and he is the head of both Parliament. Same thing. So when we talk about government, it is President and executive. When we talk about Parliament, it is President and Parliament. Similarly, Viceroy, he had his Executive Council and he has his Legislative Council. Government means it is Viceroy and Executive Council. Parliament means it is Legislature and Viceroy. Ante. So there is no much difference, right? So the concept of questionnaire, right? So 1909 Act has introduced the concept of questionnaire. Remember, in a parliamentary system of government, the most important function of parliament, right? The most important function of parliament is to ensure accountability and answerability of the government. When government fails to answer, when government fails to show its accountability, then the government has no right to stay in power. The government cannot enjoy the power. As long as it is accountable and answerable, it can enjoy the power. But once the government fails to show its accountability, or once government fails to answer, then it is a ground for removing the government. So answering of government is important. The primary responsibility of parliament is to ensure this accountability and answerability. And the most important instrument in the hand of parliament, The most important instrument in parliament to hold this government accountable is question hour. Out of all the instruments, very, very important question asked, I think it was asked in 2021 prelims, maybe in 21 prelims or 20 prelims. Out of all the important instruments, the most important instrument is question hour. Question hour is the most important instrument in the hand of parliament, by which it can question whom? Government. Alright, it can question government. Right, parliament can question the government. Alright, so this concept you can use it in public administration as well as in political science also. Alright, so question hour. Right, so the issue, the usage of question hour, the concept of question hour, it came to India, it came to existence from 1909 Act. It came to existence from 1909 Act. Okay. It is from 1909 Act we had this, right? And if you take present day system, in the present day system, alright, we have three types of questions asked in our parliament. In the present day parliament, in our parliament, we have three types of questions asked. Three types of questions. One is called as starred questions. One is starred questions. Second one is unstarred questions, and third one is what you call short notice questions. Starred questions, unstarred questions and short notice questions. Alright, starred means those questions which are highlighted by an asterisk, that is star. So we normally have this habit of using star marks in our notes. Alright, so starred, right, which is not highlighted, right, so which is in the form of short notice questions, right. So this is about three types of questions. Out of this, this is very, very important. Starred questions, right, they make the government to stand on their toes. Starred questions make the government to run. So if there is any instrument for which government operates, it is starred questions. Alright, so this is about question hour. So this 1909 Act is known for this question hour. Right, the concept of question hour came from 1909. So this is what about the significance of what you call 1909 Act. Right, so once again so it has increased the strength of both Viceroy's Legislative Council as well as Provincial Legislative Council. Alright, it has introduced separate electorate or communal electorate. For the first time, an Indian was appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council, and the first person appointed is Satyendra Prasad Sinha. Alright, it has increased the deliberative functions of the Legislative Council, right, which also mean the power to debate and discuss on any issue including budget. Right. So this 1909 Act, it is also known for introduction of question hour. Right. So these are the important elements of 1909 Act. Right. So again, if you take the historical events, right, just I will give the historical events that have influenced this 1909 Act is, one is partition of Bengal. The reason for introducing communal electorate, the roots of communal electorates are in partition of Bengal. It is in partition of Bengal. Alright, that is which was done in 1905. Vande Mataram movement, or also called as Swadeshi movement, right, where the Bengal partition was done by Lord Curzon. It was Lord Curzon, Curzon, Lord Curzon, right. He has divided Bengal on communal lines. The actual reason for dividing Bengal, is, right, it is to break Hindu-Muslim unity. So it was on communal lines. The Bengal was divided into two parts, and in 1909 the same thing was done by introducing communal electorate, and it was accepted. right? It was accepted, and the ultimate effect of this acceptance of communal electorate is dividing of Hindus and Muslims into India and Pakistan, right? So this is what about historical what you call impact or the events that have impacted 1909 Act. Next, coming to 1919 Act. Next, coming to 1919 Act. All right. So if you take this 1919 Act, if you take this 1919 Act, all right, it is this act which has promised to establish a responsible government. It is also called, this 1919 Act is also called as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. All right, they are also called as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. It is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, right?
Like it is written for 1861 in a box, what are the things we have discussed for 1909 also.
So you want me to just what you call note in a single line, all right? Okay, okay then. So coming to so just let me sum up all these points in one single line. So first, increase in the strength of legislative councils. Second one, it is known for separate electorate or communal electorate. Third one, adding of Indian in Viceroy's Executive Council. All right, that is SP Sinha, the first person to be appointed. All right. Fourth one, increasing of deliberative functions of the council. All right, and it is question. All right. So these are the highlights of 1909 Act. These are the highlights of 1909 Act. Okay. So coming to 1919 Act. So this 1919 Act, third, adding of Indian into Viceroy's Executive Council. So shortly I have written it as VI. VI means Viceroy. Viceroy's Executive Council. And the first person to be appointed is SP Sinha, Satyendra Prasad Sinha. All right. So 1919 Act. 1919 Act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Again, Montagu is Secretary of State, whereas Chelmsford is Viceroy. It is Montagu who is the Secretary of State, and Viceroy, it is Chelmsford who is the Viceroy of India. All right. So it has promised. So these reforms, so we are calling it as reforms, right? So again, at the end of this what we call 1919 Act, I'll ask why it should be called as reforms. All right. So it has provided responsible government. What do you mean by responsible government? What do you mean by responsible government? What do you understand by responsible government? What do you understand by responsible government? Responsible government means a government that is always answerable and accountable to the people. All right, that is what responsible government. So when government will be answerable and accountable to people? Only when government is elected by people. So without government getting elected by people, can the government be accountable and answerable? So without having an elected government, we should never expect the government to be accountable and answerable. Right? So we always, right? So whenever we talk about responsible government, even today, all right, even news or in newspapers, you always see this word of responsible government. So what do you mean by responsible government? So responsible government means it is a government that is answerable and accountable. A government that is answerable and accountable. And this is possible only when there is an elected government. So without having elected government, it is not possible. It is not possible to have what you call responsible government. That means 1919 Act has promised to provide it has promised to provide direct elections. So 1919 Act is known for direct elections. All right, that is the people. All right, people are given the right to elect their own government. But remember, if you take present day system, in the present day system, it is the principle of universal adult franchise. Right? Today we are seeing elections in India. Right? So it is all the adults of this nation. It is all the adults of this nation who are given the right to elect their government, right to vote. Right? So it is everyone, irrespective of caste, creed, region, religion, anything. All right? The only criteria is adults. That is all the one who have crossed 18 years. They are given the voting rights. But coming to 1919 Act. So if you take this 1919 Act, so in 1919 Act, the 1919 Act has what you call the 1919 Act has given voting rights on a limited basis. That is on a limited franchise. It is on a limited franchise. Okay, that means not all the people, only limited sections of Indian society, they are given the voting rights. It is limited sections of Indian society. It is limited sections of Indian society who are given the voting rights. Limited sections of society are given the voting rights. Okay, so this is what about direct elections. Who are these people, or who are the sections who got the voting rights? It is about zamindars, taxpayers, business class, right, government servants, Anglo Indians. It is these people. Now the issue is, why the British India government, why the Viceroy or Secretary of State, they have announced this responsible government. The reason for this is, it is the impact of Home Rule movement. It is the impact of Home Rule movement. Home Rule movement that was organized in 1919. Right? So Home Rule movement that was organized in I'm really sorry, it is in 1916. So Home Rule movement was organized in 1916. So it is just because of the impact of this Home Rule movement, because during this Home Rule movement, which was organized by Annie Besant, right? Annie Besant. So even before, we have two important personalities. One is Tilak, other one is Annie Besant. So it is Tilak who was the first person to have launched Home Rule movement in the month of April 1916, and by August 1916, Annie Besant have launched Home Rule movement, right? Where the major demand of this Home Rule movement is Swaraj, self-rule. So Indians were demanding self-rule. Indians have demanded, right? They have demanded self-rule. So Annie Besant has fought for the political rights of Indians, right? So Swaraj, that is Swaraj. So if you take this Swaraj is not new in India. All right, almost from 1875. It was in 1875 for the first founders of Arya Samaj. Who is the founder of Arya Samaj? Dayananda Saraswati. It is Dayananda Saraswati. Right? Who has given a call for Swaraj? Right? They have inspired the goal of Swaraj. So in 1892, all right, it is from 1892 to 1896. It was Tilak. It was Bala Gangadhar Tilak, all right, who has inspired the people for the sake of Swaraj. All right, even Swami Vivekananda, he even talked about the goal of Swaraj. That means the point I want to convey is Swaraj is not new, or don't think that Swaraj has come only in 1916. Right, Swaraj was a goal of India from 1875. So from 1875 onwards, all right, we were talking about Swaraj. All right. So in 1916, all right, in 1916 a mass movement was organized. In 1916, a mass movement. In 1916. A mass movement was organized, and the impact of this mass movement, is, all right, so by 1917, all right, by 1917, the British government took a decision of announcing what we call responsible government, and even a statement was made in British Parliament, right? So that is by 1917 itself, right, the responsible government was announced. So that is the roots of responsible government, right? So coming to another provisions of 1919 Act, right? So this 1919 Act has clearly separated the provincial powers from central powers. The central subjects and provincial subjects are clearly separated. Separation of central subjects. Separation of central subjects from provincial subjects. Separation of central subjects from provincial subjects. So this was done, all right. So that is the legislative, the executive, and the financial powers. All right, the legislative powers, the executive powers, and the financial powers. So these powers are separated from, that is, the central powers are separated from provincial powers. Right. So this is one thing. All right. Most importantly, all right, we see introduction of bicameralism or bicameral legislature. So 1919 Act has introduced a bicameral legislature. It has introduced a bicameral legislature. All right. So what do you mean by bicameral legislature? So we have two types of systems. One is unicameral systems and the other one is bicameral systems. Unicameral means single legislature, single legislative body. Bicameral means two legislative bodies, existence of two legislative bodies. Existence of two legislative bodies. Right? So one is called as House of Representatives, House of People, and it is also referred as House of Representatives, and the other one is Council of States, and the other one is Council of States. All right. So remember this concept of bicameral legislature. This concept of bicameral legislature, it was introduced in center. It was introduced in center. Alright, so now we have central government as well as provincial government. Right. So in center, it was in center where this bicameralism was introduced. The bicameral legislature, the system of bicameral legislature was introduced in center, right, but not in provinces, right. This is one development, one thing that was brought. Fourth one, right, introduction of diarchy. Introduction of diarchy. So the system of diarchy was introduced in provinces. It was in provinces. The system of diarchy was introduced in provinces. Right? So what is diarchy? Arcs. Two arcs. Right? Two hands. Right? Two hands given, that is two assistants, two forms of assistance. Alright. So literally it means two arcs or two hands. It is nothing but, right, two institutions. It is two institutions to assist governor of the province. It is two institutions meant to assist governor. That is, if you take governor of a province, this governor of a province is assisted by executive council and the other one is elected government. So one hand is executive council, other hand is elected government. So now governor has two hands. Governor is assisted by two hands. One is executive council and the other one is elected government. So this is what called as diarchy. So this means diarchy. And remember, this concept of diarchy is introduced. This concept of diarchy is introduced only in provinces but not in center. So bicameral legislature, it is in center, whereas diarchy it is in provinces. Alright. So mind this. Remember, just have what you call a close. Next one. Alright. So it has 1919 Act. 1919 Act has clearly separated the central budget from provincial budget. So in 1861 it was common budget. In 1861 it was common budget, but now it is two separate budgets. That is, the provinces are given the power to make their own budget. Earlier, even the provincial budgets were prepared by Viceroy, but from 1919, the provinces, the governor of the province are given the power to make their own budget. That is, we see separation of central budget. We see separation of central budget from provincial budget. Separation of central budget from provincial budget. Right? So now this is prepared by Viceroy and this is prepared by governor. Same thing even today. We have center having its own budget and every state having their own budget. Not only this, even if you take the central budget, so this central budget is again divided into two parts. One is called as general budget, and the other one is railway budget. Alright. So the central budget is divided into two parts. One is general budget and the other one is railway budget. That means the 1919 Act has introduced dual budgeting in India. It has introduced dual budgeting. In India. Alright. So this got implemented from 1921. Remember, it got implemented from 1921, and this dual budgeting was recommended by Ackworth Committee. It was It is Ackworth Committee which has recommended. It is Ackworth Committee which has recommended what you call division of what you call separation of general budget from railway budget, and from 1921 to 2018 it was the same kind of budget system that we have followed. Right, till 2018 we had dual budgeting in India. So it was only in 2019, right, the railway budget was again merged with general budget. So it was done by the then finance minister Arun Jaitley. Right, it was during the times of Arun Jaitley where the railway budget was merged with general budget again. Right, so that is from 1921 to 2018 we had this dual budgeting. And this dual budgeting was introduced on the recommendations of Ackworth, right? ACWORTH, Ackworth Committee, right? So this is one thing.
Sir, can we call it central dual budget?
Dual budgeting in center. Yes.
Because all dual budget means are calling some central.
No, it is called a separate budget. Separate is different from dual budgeting, right? So when we call it as separate budgeting, it is nothing but center and provinces having their own separate budgets, right? So this is one element, right? Next one, if we take this another elements of this what you call 1919 Act, right? So not only it has brought changes in budget, but at the same time, right, two important committees were constituted by 1919 Act. They are Public Accounts Committee and Estimates Committee, right? So one is PAC, Public Accounts Committee and Estimates Committee, right? So both these committees were created according to 1919 Act, and they came to existence in 1921. They came to existence in 1921, right? So, right, it is, right? So these are the major changes, right? These are the legislative committees. Both, remember, the Public Accounts Committee and Estimates Committee are legislative committees. They are legislative committees. So what is the purpose of legislative committees? The purpose of legislative committees is to examine the work of executive on behalf of legislature, right? Remember, very important for exam, right? Every year you see a question on legislative committees, both in prelims as well as in mains. Very important for mains exam, right? So the purpose of these legislative committees, the purpose of legislative committees is to examine. The purpose of legislative committees is to examine the working of executive. And even today, out of all the parliamentary committees that were present, the most important parliamentary committee is PAC, Public Accounts Committee, right? So PAC is always regarded as a constitutional watchdog, a parliamentary watchdog, right? So PAC along with CAG, right? PAC along with Comptroller General of Accounts. Sorry. This Comptroller General of Audit, right? So Comptroller General of Audit, right? So because earlier we used to have CAG, now one is removed. The accounts are removed from what you call auditing. So earlier we used to call it as Controller General of Audit and Accounts, but now there is no accounts. It is only auditing. It is Controller General of Audit or Controller and Auditor General. So we should not use the word audit. We should not use the word and. So in the normal parlance, right, people are using this word and, but actually after this 1976 there are many changes, right? It is so CAG along with PAC, they are regarded as constitutional watchdog. They are regarded as constitutional watchdog of public purse, because they should see, they should protect public purse. Whatever government spends, from whom, whose money it is public money. Alright. So there should be someone to see, right? There should be someone to examine whether public money is spent in the right direction or not. Right? So it is for this reason, right? We have this what you call parliamentary committees. So this PAC, the Public Accounts Committee and Estimates Committee, it came to existence in 1921, right? According to 1919 Act, right? Not only this, right? 1919 Act also created the office of High Commissioner to India, right? A new office, that is High Commissioner to India was created, right? A new office of High Commissioner to India was created, right? So if you take this office of High Commissioner to India, right, the purpose of this High Commissioner to India is only to reduce the burden of, the purpose of the High Commissioner to India is only to reduce the burden of Secretary of State. Alright, the purpose of this High Commissioner to India, it is to reduce the burden of Secretary of State. Alright, so this is one thing. Alright, another important initiative that came in 1919 Act is, alright, constitution of a committee under the chairmanship of Viscount Lee. Alright, a committee under the chairmanship of Viscount Lee was constituted, right? The purpose of this Viscount Lee Commission, right? So it is this Viscount Lee Committee, right, who has recommended constitution of Central Public Service Commission. So it is this Viscount Lee Committee which has actually recommended constitution of Public Service Commission. So what is the purpose of Public Service Commission? What is the purpose of Public Service Commission? What is the purpose of Public Service Commission? You are about to write Public Service Commission exam. Alright. So whether Public Service Commissions, they conduct exams or they recruit or they appoint, what do they do? What do this Public Service Commission do? Alright? Service? Create jobs. Service of? Service of people. Alright? The purpose of Public Service Commission is to conduct exams. Right? The purpose of conducting exam is to check the merit candidates. Only to recommend merit candidates. It is the government that will appoint, not Public Service Commissions. Public Service Commissions are not involved in appointments. Public Service Commissions are involved only in conducting exam as well as recommending the merit candidates. It prepares a merit list based upon the examination, and this list is sent to what you call government. Alright, if you take UPSC, so we are all writing UPSC exam. Alright, so UPSC prepares a list of merit candidates. Alright, and this UPSC always works under Ministry of Personnel. Alright, it is Ministry of Personnel. So Ministry of Personnel is always regarded as central personal agency in India. It is central personal agency, whereas UPSC it is central recruiting agency. It just I'm sorry. So Ministry of Personnel is both central personnel and recruiting agency. It is just central personnel and recruiting agency, where UPSC is involved only in merit testing agency, central merit testing agency. It will only test the merit, and the merit list is given to Ministry of Personnel. Alright. So based upon the rank and category, who are first selected? So normally most of the people should know this point, the one who is writing UPSC exam. So, alright, who are first selected, whether IAS or IPS or which servicemen? So remember, the list that is prepared by UPSC, so normally it will be given to Ministry of Personnel, because UPSC works under Ministry of Personnel, and from this Ministry of Personnel, the list is first sent to Ministry of External Affairs. It is the Ministry of External Affairs which receives the list first, and it is IFS, Indian Foreign Service. Right, the persons, the candidates who are opting Indian Foreign Service, they are first selected based upon the rank. Then it is IAS, then it is IPS. It is first IFS who are selected, then IAS who are selected, and then it is IPS who are selected. Right. So this concept of Public Service Commission, it came to existence for the first time in India on the recommendations of Viscount-Lee Committee. So it was Viscount-Lee Committee who has recommended constitution of Central Public Service Commission. Right. So this Central Public Service Commission came to existence actually in 1926. The report was submitted in 1925 and it was constituted. It came to existence in 1926. Alright. So this is, alright, these are the main elements of 1919 Act. And another important point which I missed is 1919 Act has extended the concept of separate electorate.
Can you make differentiation between UPSC and the central commission, sir?
Right. So see here, I'll make a difference. Right. So it has recommended, it has extended 1919 Act. 1919 Act has extended what you call the extended the separate electorate, the ambit of the scope or the ambit of separate electorate was extended. So earlier initially it was given to Hindus and Muslims, but now it is given to Anglo-Indians, Christians and Sikhs. That is, other religions were also brought into this fold of separate electorate. Right. So if you take UPSC, so UPSC it is for the entire union services. That is, all those individuals who are recruited, who are selected by UPSC, they work under center. But here coming to Central Public Service Commission, right, they are appointed the provincial services. They are appointed for provincial services. In 1935, what you call Imperial Public Service Commission was created. Alright, which is nothing but UPSC. Alright. So these are the elements of 1919 Act. So let me sum up the entire 1919 Act. First, it is known for responsible government, direct elections. Third, it is known for bicameral legislature. It is known for diarchy. It has introduced diarchy. It has separation of powers. I'm sorry, you should have used the word separation. I'm sorry. It has divided the powers. Divided the powers between center and provinces. Alright? Division of budget. Division of budget. Alright? Dual budgeting. It is known, it has introduced dual budgeting on the recommendations of Ackworth Committee. Alright? It has created the institutions of Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee. Alright? It has created, alright, institution of High Commissioner to India. High Commissioner to India. Alright? So, it has introduced, alright, constituted Viscount Lee Committee, which recommended Central Public Service Commission. Alright? Expanded separate electorate. Expanded separate electorate. So these are the highlights of 1919 Act. These are the highlights of 1919 Act. Okay. Ackworth. Alright. So ఇది వాళ్ళంతా రాసుకుంటారు, మనం ఏం చేయలేము దానికి. Alright. Alright, it is Ackworth Committee. Alright. So this is about the 1919 Act. Divide the powers between center and provinces. So even today we have the same kind of system where legislative, executive and financial powers are divided between center and states. Okay. Expanded the ambit of separate electorate. Alright. So other communities, other regions are given separate electorate. Alright. So am I clear about today's class? So in today's class what we have discussed is, one is 1858 Act, we have discussed 1861 Act, and we have discussed 1909 Act, we have discussed 1919 Act. So these are the what you call acts that we have discussed in today's class. Alright. So for now I'll stop the class here. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time of 9:30. So all the current affairs sessions, so I'll upload them in the YouTube channel, right? So I'll record the sessions and I'll upload in the YouTube channel. Alright. So I want to complete the regular syllabus as soon as possible. That is the reason why from 9:30 to 12 o'clock it will be only polity class. Alright. And by evening you can expect uploading of current affairs class. Okay, done. See, evening by almost all 7-8 o'clock I will upload in the YouTube channel. So there won't be any class in the classroom. Alright, I'll record the session in the class and I'll upload. Okay, I'll do it in the okay. ఇంకా ఉంటే చెప్పండి. నిన్న క్లాస్ అప్లోడ్ అయింది కదా, అయింది మధ్యాహ్నం చేసినాడు.
మా ఫ్రెండ్స్ చూపించినప్పుడు ఆ వీడియో కనిపించలేదు. థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్.
ఓకే.